I stared at the insurance documents spread across my desk, a strange calm settling over me despite what they revealed. $5 million in life insurance, taken out just 3 months ago. My husband David's signature perfectly forged on every page. Next to them lay bank statements showing systematic transfers of company funds to offshore accounts. The evidence was damning, but I wasn't surprised. I'd known something was wrong for months. My name is Lauren Carter, and at 35, I was the CFO of Carter Technologies, a cybersecurity firm I'd built with David over the last decade. We met in grad school, me with my MBA and with his computer science degree. We had big dreams of revolutionizing the industry. For years, we were the perfect team. Then Emma entered our lives. Emma Blake, my best friend since college, the maid of honor at our wedding. And now, apparently, the architect of my husband's elaborate plan to fake his death and disappear with millions. The phone call came at 3 a.m. Emma's voice was thick with tears. "Lauren, something terrible has happened," she sobbed. "David's boat, there was an accident. They can't find him. The Coast Guard is still searching, but they think he's gone." I gripped the phone tighter, listening to her performance. It was good. I had to give her that. The tremor in her voice, the perfectly timed pauses. She probably rehearsed it. "I'm coming over," she continued. "You shouldn't be alone right now." "No," I said firmly. "I need some time to process this. I'll call you tomorrow." There was a slight hesitation before she responded. "Of course. Whatever you need, I'm here for you, Lauren." I hung up and walked to my home office, powered up my laptop, and pulled up the tracking software I'd installed months ago. David's phone signal was active, moving steadily south along the coast. Some tragic accident. It had started 6 months earlier. Small changes at first. David working later than usual, being more protective of his phone, taking business trips that didn't quite add up. Then I noticed discrepancies in the company accounts. Nothing obvious, but enough to make me suspicious. Emma started showing up at the office more frequently, claiming she wanted to support her best friend's company. She and David would have long meetings behind closed doors. Strategy sessions, they called them. I pretended not to notice the lingering looks, the way their conversations stopped when I entered a room. I could have confronted them then, but something held me back. Maybe it was years of business negotiations teaching me the value of patience, or maybe it was the cold anger that had started to build inside me. Either way, I watched and waited. 3 months ago, I hired a private investigator. Within weeks, he'd uncovered everything. The secret meetings, the hidden accounts, the forged insurance policies. David and Emma had been planning this for months. They would fake his death, collect the insurance money, and disappear with millions in embezzled company funds. Emma would play the grieving friend, supporting the widow while helping to dismantle any suspicion. It was almost elegant in its simplicity. Almost. What they didn't know was that I had been 10 steps ahead of them the entire time. Every transaction they thought was hidden. Every account they believed was secure. I had documentation for all of it. But more importantly, I had something they didn't expect. Patience. The morning after Emma's call, I began implementing my own plan. First, I contacted James Mitchell, my personal attorney and the only person who knew what was really happening. "Are you sure about this?" he asked when I laid out my strategy. "We have enough evidence to stop them now." "I'm sure," I replied, my voice steady. "Let them think they've won. Let them get comfortable. Then we'll show them exactly what happens when you underestimate me." James nodded slowly. "It's your call. But be careful, Lauren. People who are capable of this level of betrayal are dangerous." I smiled, though there was no warmth in it. "Trust me, James. They have no idea what dangerous really looks like." The next few days were a blur of activity. The Coast Guard called off their search. Emma was constantly at my side, playing the role of supportive best friend perfectly. She held my hand through meetings with the police, helped me plan a memorial service, and made all the right sympathetic noises. I played my part too, the grieving widow, too devastated to look too closely at the insurance policies or company accounts. I let Emma handle the paperwork, watching as she tried to hide her satisfaction when everything went smoothly. The memorial service was a masterclass in deception. Emma stood beside me, dabbing at her eyes as she delivered a touching eulogy about David's brilliance and devotion. I sat in the front row, my face carefully composed, thinking about how my husband was probably on a beach somewhere. congratulating himself on his clever escape. But I had a surprise waiting for both of them, because while they'd been busy planning David's death, I'd been making my own arrangements. Every dollar they thought they were stealing had been carefully tracked. Every account they believed was secure was being monitored. And the insurance policy they were counting on, it had a few clauses they hadn't noticed. 2 weeks after the memorial service, I sat in my office reviewing security footage from our Cayman Islands branch. David had been sloppy. His new passport might be fake, but his face was still his face. I watched as he entered the bank, Emma trailing behind him in an obvious disguise. They thought they were being clever. The insurance company had approved the claim with surprising speed, no doubt helped along by the forged Coast Guard reports Emma had submitted. $5 million would be deposited into my account within days. What they didn't know was that I'd already flagged the policy for fraud investigation. My phone buzzed, Emma calling again. She'd been checking in regularly, playing the concerned friend while also trying to gauge if I suspected anything. "Lauren," she said when I answered, her voice gentle. "How are you holding up?" "As well as can be expected," I replied, keeping my voice appropriately subdued. "Actually, I could use your help with something. The insurance money is coming through, and I'm not sure what to do with it all." There was a slight pause. I could almost see her trying to contain her excitement. "Of course, whatever you need. Why don't I come over tomorrow? We can go through everything together." "Perfect," I said. "Oh, and Emma, thank you for everything. I don't know what I'd do without you." After hanging up, I opened my laptop and sent a quick email to James. Everything was falling into place. The next morning, Emma arrived bright and early, armed with financial advice and fake sympathy. We sat at my dining room table, papers spread out between us. "I've been thinking," she said carefully, "maybe you should consider investing the money offshore. Diversify your assets." I nodded thoughtfully. "That's actually a good idea. I've heard the Cayman Islands are good for that sort of thing." Her hand trembled slightly as she reached for her coffee. "Yes, I've heard that too." "Funny story," I continued casually, "our Cayman Islands branch had some interesting visitors last week. Would you like to see?" Before she could respond, I slid my tablet across the table. The security footage played clearly, David and Emma entering the bank, their pathetic attempts at disguise doing nothing to hide their identities. The color drained from her face. "Lauren, I can explain." "Can you?" I cut her off, my voice ice cold. "Can you explain why my supposedly dead husband is very much alive and accessing company accounts of my best friend? Can you explain the forged insurance documents, the embezzled funds? Please, Emma, I'm curious to hear how you'll spin this." She stood up so quickly her chair toppled backward. "You don't understand. David and I love each other." I finished for her. "How romantic. Planning to fake his death, steal millions, and run away together. Like something out of a movie." "He was unhappy," she said desperately. "We didn't mean to hurt you." I laughed, the sound sharp and humorless. "You didn't mean to hurt me. You've been systematically stealing from the company I built. You helped my husband fake his death. You've been lying to my face for months, but please tell me more about how you didn't mean to hurt me." Emma backed away, her eyes darting toward the door. "What are you going to do?" I stood slowly, smoothing my skirt. "Right now?" "Nothing. You're going to walk out that door and call David. Tell him everything's fine. Tell him I'm still the grieving widow, completely in the dark. And then you're both going to learn exactly what happens when you cross me." "Lauren, please. Get out," I said quietly. "And Emma, enjoy your time with David while you can. It won't last long." She fled, leaving her papers scattered across the table. I sat back down, pulled out my phone, and dialed James. "It's done," I said when he answered. "She'll warn David, and he'll try to move the money. Are we ready?" "Everything's in place," he confirmed. "The moment they try to access those accounts, it'll trigger the investigation. The FBI is already interested. Apparently, David's been involved in more than just embezzlement. They've linked him to a major cybercrime ring." I smiled. Of course he was. David had always been greedy. It was one of the first things that attracted me to him in business school. That same greed would be his downfall. The next few days were a waiting game. I knew they'd try to empty the accounts quickly now that Emma knew I was onto them. So I waited, tracking their increasingly panicked attempts to access the money they thought was safely hidden. 3 days after my confrontation with Emma, everything imploded. The FBI raided their hideout in the Cayman Islands, acting on the evidence I provided through James. The look on David's face in the arrest photos was priceless. Complete shock mixed with dawning realization. He finally understood who he'd been up against. Emma tried to run but didn't make it far. They caught her at the airport, still carrying documents that implicated her in the fraud. But that wasn't even the best part. The cybercrime investigation revealed something neither of them had anticipated. David hadn't just been stealing from our company. He'd been selling classified information to competitors. The FBI had been watching him for months, building a case that would now be strengthened by the evidence of insurance fraud and faked death. I sat in my office, watching the news coverage of their arrests. My phone was buzzing constantly, reporters wanting comments, business associates expressing shock and support. I ignored them all, focusing instead on the email from James. "They're both looking at significant prison time," he wrote. "The FBI is particularly interested in David's cybercrime connections. Emma's trying to cut a deal, offering to testify against him. Thought you'd appreciate the irony." I did appreciate it. Their perfect plan, their dream of running away together with millions, had crumbled. And the best part? I hadn't just caught them, I destroyed them completely. The company stock actually rose when the news broke. My quick action in uncovering the fraud and cooperating with authorities had impressed our investors. Carter Technologies wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. A month after their arrests, I received a letter from David in prison. His handwriting was shaky, his words desperate. "Lauren, please," he wrote. "You have to help me. I know I made a mistake, but everything I did was for us, for the company. Emma meant nothing. It was all part of the plan. You're my wife, we built this together." I shredded the letter without finishing it. The next day, I filed for divorce. Emma tried to contact me too, through her lawyer. She wanted to apologize, to explain herself. I sent back a simple message: "Save it for your sentencing hearing." The trials were quick. With a mountain of evidence against them, both David and Emma took plea deals. David got 15 years for the combined charges of fraud, cybercrime, and conspiracy. Emma got 7 years, her sentence reduced in exchange for her testimony about David's other illegal activities. I attended both sentencing hearings, sitting quietly in the back of the courtroom. Neither of them would look at me. They couldn't bear to see what they'd lost, what they'd thrown away in their greed and betrayal. 1 year later, I stood at the podium of a cybersecurity conference, delivering the keynote speech. Carter Technologies had expanded, our reputation stronger than ever. I was being hailed as a pioneer in the industry, not just for our technological innovations, but for my handling of the crisis. The biggest threat to any organization, I told the packed audience, isn't always external. Sometimes it's the people you trust most who can cause the most damage. But with the right safeguards, the right awareness, you can turn any attack into an opportunity. The applause was thunderous. As I walked off stage, I thought about David and Emma, sitting in their separate prison cells, probably still wondering how their perfect plan had fallen apart. They thought I was an easy target, the trusting wife, the loyal friend. They never understood that I'd built this company from the ground up, that I'd survived in this cutthroat industry by being smarter, more patient, and more ruthless than anyone expected. That evening, I sat in my new penthouse office, looking out over the city lights. My phone buzzed with a text from James. The last of David's appeals had been denied. He would serve his full sentence. I smiled, pouring myself a glass of champagne. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just about catching someone in their betrayal. It's about letting them destroy themselves while you rise from the ashes stronger than ever. Emma and David had tried to write me out of their story, to reduce me to a footnote in their great escape. Instead, they'd become cautionary tales in mine. And me? I was just getting started.